Hi, this is Scott Jordan. Where am I? Way down here. Hi, this is Scott Jordan, and you are definitely watching live here at Cellars of Sonoma in beautiful Railroad Square, Santa Rosa, California. And welcome to TV Tuesday Live. This is the show where we taste wine, we talk about wine. It's interactive. You guys get to participate. If you're tuned in for the very first time, I keep forgetting to say this each week. If you're tuned in for the very first time, to the right of the video box, which is my left over here, there's a social stream. Click on that, and you can, through Facebook or Twitter or Ustream, go ahead and ask a question of myself or my guest, and we will answer it live. We'll also draw some names for those of you that have come in and done our blind tasting. You're entered into a contest, and I must say I went through the bag to just see who was in there, and some of you have been in here a couple times. So anyway, we'll talk about that. But we're going to talk about summertime wines, and I wanted to bring our good friend Dave Batt back in to talk about the summertime wines and another project that he's involved with.
Thank you, Scott.
Dave, welcome to
Pleasure
TV
to
Tuesday Live, man.
Pleasure
Yeah.
to be here.
So the summertime is here, and what better to start with a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc and some Chardonnays. And we've got a couple different styles, and we'll talk about, what I want to do is talk about the different styles in both the Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. Now, for the viewers that are my red wine only drinkers, and there are some of you out there. All right, good shot, Karina. Thank you. You're looking at this going, oh, great.
Nothing for me here.
There's not one stupid wine I can have. But really, what I really want you to understand is use these wines in the beginning of your meal. Pair them up with some nice cheeses. Yes, Manchego, my favorite cheese. I love that. Those of you that tune in on a regular basis know that I do like Manchego, but I like a simple cheese. I like a cheese that isn't overpowering, right? Because that can be a problem, don't you think?
I think so. I think what's nice about the white wines, you think of red wines and cheese because it helps smooth out some of the bigger style reds and kind of evens things out. But it is summertime, and cheese is light, and light foods are in order, and of course light wines because they're refreshing. Summertime, they're chilled down. It's a little more refreshing. So for those of you who drink red wines, you can appreciate it as a beverage that is a change of pace, summertime kind of thing to do because it is summer. Light wines are in order. Yeah,
and you can't be sitting out by the pool, 85, 90 degrees, chilling down your favorite Bordeaux blend. I mean, come on, that's just not going to work. You got to work with the weather situations, and again, pick it with your food. Yes. Because Sauvignon Blanc can be very, very versatile, and a great value because it's a wine that it's not terribly difficult to produce.
Correct.
I mean, it's pretty fast. Doesn't sit in a tank or a barrel for any great length of time.
So it comes through the winery quicker. So from a business standpoint, there's less investment of cellaring and lots of barrels and things like that. So that's a less expensive proposition for a winery. It passes those savings on to you typically, and when you see them on the shelf, you might be surprised that they are as inexpensive as they are, and yet are as tasty and complex as they are. So,
yeah, because it's a really, I think if you were having Thai food or sushi, the Sauvignon Blancs really work nice. I mean, they really complement that food group. And the spice.
As a pairing, yeah. And you're mentioning pairings, but the reality is it's a great beverage by itself too. That's what's nice about it. You don't need to put it with food, but it works really well with food.
And a lot of wineries make Sauvignon Blanc. Some of them only use 100% stainless steel. Some take a little bit of the juice, maybe 10 or 20%, and put it into barrels. And that tends to soften it a little bit. I personally am not the biggest fan of the real super grassy. First of all, I don't want an overpowering wine.
Right.
You know, and the super grassy ones really become overpowered. But a little softness is nice.
Uh-huh.
And the perfect example is in Gann Family Cellars. Gann this is their 2007. Now you might think, oh boy, that's really pushing the envelope, but not really. This wine, first of all, great vintage year. We've had just nothing but fun with 2007 wines. They've been ideal. But he took about 10% of this and barrel fermented it. And so the barrel fermentation, what that's doing is that's going to soften it up a little bit and move away from that really super grassiness. But the fruit in the nose is still there. Light, refreshing, and man, that's going to go with a lot of foods. Boy, that's nice. That kind of grapefruit. Now, here's the other thing. These don't have huge shelf life, so you tend to get some deals. And this wine is on a wine special. And right now, retail on it is $24, but on 6 bottles up to 11, you can get it for $15 a bottle. That's a great deal.
Excellent.
But if you buy 11, have your friend hit you in the head because you're a knucklehead, because buying 11 is goofy. First of all, there's no such thing as a shipper box that has 11. Okay, you're paying for 12.
Right.
Pony up the other bottle, and they'll lower the price down to $12.50.
Makes sense.
Right.
Free bottle of wine.
So
right
if you can't do the math on that, then you need to be hit in the head, and that's just the way it is.
Great.
But that's a great buy, $12.50 on that wine by the case, and that's what you want to do. You want to have a little extra for the summer. So I mean that's a heck of a deal. You can't go wrong with that. And it's pouring nice. It's still
Has a pretty
well.
nose. It has enough substance to it that the finish is a long finish. It's there, but right at the very end, it just cleans up nicely. It's like when you stop your car, it just kind of stops, and you don't even know it. It's the same thing. It's a very smooth kind of finish to it, which leads you to whatever else you put in your mouth afterwards. It's going to be great. So if you have a salad in front of you, whether you have Scott says some cheese or something like that, it's going to be waiting for that next pleasurable taste.
Yeah, and if you get some really super stinky cheese, don't go in that direction with this. But if you've got anything with a little spice in it, or maybe Manchego, yeah, thanks. My comedian camera person over here, Karina. Maybe a pepper jack that's got a little spice to it. You know what I mean?
Some
of those,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
They've got some peppers in there. That would work really nice. I mean, it'll handle. If you like wasabi, my wife, when she has sushi, she just loads that stuff up. This could handle that.
It sure could. Sure could.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt it at all. You got a question there, young lady?
I have 2 questions.
Okay, fire up.
The first one's coming from Brad, and he would like to know if you would consider White Zin a summer wine, and if you do, would you recommend a good one? So that's the first question.
That's a two-part question. That's the.
Dazelle has a question
Well, tell
as
him
well.
he's got to wait on
Yeah.
his. All right, so White Zinfandel. Let's first, I think, more than anything else, define White Zinfandel. Historically, many, many years ago, and Sutter Home is a perfect example. Basically, what they did was take their Zinfandel and remove the skins early. Once they obtained the color they're looking for, remove that early, and then they sweeten the wine a little bit, and it's what you see is that white Zinfandel. Yeah, it can be a summertime wine, but I'm really digging the rosés of today that are really done. They're done dry. And my take on it, and you may have a different opinion, and so may the rest of you guys, but I don't want that wine to interfere with my meal. And if it's too sweet, it's going to throw things off. I think I've got a lot more selection if I'm doing a rosé, and there's some great rosés out there. Shout out to Heidi Barrett. I will not name the brand. It's not in our room, but she made the wine. But my son brought over, and it was pricey. Gosh, what was it was $45
for rosé.
Rosé that Heidi Barrett made, dry rosé. But you know what, man? That was worth every freaking penny. That was a beautiful wine. That was an absolutely very cool. She made it from Cab, so it wasn't cheap. You know,
Right.
I mean, your grape source was expensive. But I'm telling you, if I did that in a blind tasting for all my red wine only drinkers who just can't go to the rosé side, you'd flip. It was spectacular.
Yeah, rosé is a very respectable and just wonderfully pleasurable wine. White Zinfandel invented here because Zinfandel is the grape that grows substantially in America. It was a way to move what was planted substantially as a major planting in California to continue to vary the flavor profiles and so forth, and to get the sweetness that would stop the fermentation early, so what was juice retained some of that residual sugar, so that you had that beverage. And so many of us grew up on the soft drinks and so forth, so it was a natural way. It's very much a strong entree into the world of wine to start that way, and folks who get into wine realize they go from lighter to heavier, and they go from the sweeter to the drier styles over time as we taste wine. So it was a natural way to gather up folks, to make them comfortable, to share it among their friends who they themselves may be enjoying wine by it, but they're in a social environment where others have not yet. It becomes a good compromise across, and there are good, solid white Zinfandels. A lot of them try and gather that same profile of having enough sweetness so that there's enjoyable by itself. It's a beverage, but winemakers are behind it who also do some other amazing things. And as Scott was saying, across the world, rosés are really solidly loved, very much as a fine wine.
And every winery, and I'm kind of like a wine junkie. Here I'm around wine every single day. I own my own tasting room, so it's just kind of silly. You probably think it's nuts that on my days off when I'm not here, I'm actually out tasting wine at wineries. But I do, and I look for rosés. And it's a rarity that I don't find one that I really like.
And you like drier rosés?
Oh yeah, I don't need the sweet stuff. It just doesn't work for me.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Since white Zinfandel is sweet, would you think you'd move it to the back end of a meal, maybe as a lighter style dessert wine, in a sense, where it's not thick and extruded and really full?
I think you could to a degree. It's not quite sweet enough like a late harvest or a port, but true. Yeah, you could if there's something in your meal that's got a little hint of sweetness, maybe, or maybe a salad where you've got like strawberries in there and stuff. Sometimes they have those salads where they've got a little bit of citrus in there. That might balance.
Yeah, natural fruit sugars is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But there's still enough bite in the strawberry, for instance.
Yeah.
That you might try.
That might work. Dazal had a question. What was the other question?
So Dazal was wondering, since 2007, or they don't have long shelf life, how is it holding up? And was it barrel oaked?
Yeah, this particular Sauvignon Blanc saw about 10%, 15% was barrel fermented or it was aged in the barrel, in a neutral barrel. So barrels that, for example, they've used maybe 1 or 2 vintages on it, and so they go ahead and put that juice in there, and it just softens things up a little bit.
It adds some complexity too, and what I mean by that is it actually widens the opportunity for you to pair it with some other things. As Scott was mentioning earlier, while it softens things up, it also gives it enough body to begin to look at some other opportunities to pair it.
Yeah. So no, you're not going to sit down and age this wine. You're going to want to drink it, relatively soon, but it's still holding up quite nice. And I don't really have a problem. So this is a great opportunity to dive in, get some wine for the summer, and save a ton of money. I mean, I can't. Yeah. For the money, you're not going to beat that. You can go to your grocery store from now until the cows come home, and you're not going to beat that. All Russian River fruit, old vine fruit too. And at some point today, we'll flip the camera over to the vine that we have in the back of the library lounge. This wine came from that vineyard. That's where I took that vine.
Okay.
Was off of that vineyard in Russian River. So if you're buying individual bottles because you're crazy, they're $24. But go 6 or more, you can get it down to 15. You get it down to 12 and a half if you buy a case. If you buy a 11 bottle case, then you need to be hitting the head because that's kind of goofy. Anyway, so enough of that. I'm going to pour the next Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, we'll use the same glass. Yeah. And we'll use the other one for the Chardonnay. This is from Joseph Jewell. Now, this comes from an area that's not necessarily known for Sauvignon Blanc because it's Alexander Valley fruit. So in proximity to Russian River being a little cooler climate, Alexander Valley's quite a ways away from the ocean, and it gets pretty hot over there. But there's little pockets where there's some shading from the trees and the hillside that allows you to get away with Sauvignon Blanc. But boy, you got to be careful. And then you're also the other challenge is this doesn't command enough price point to warrant planting a whole lot of that in that expensive land. Right. Because you can put cabin over there and get 4,000 a ton. You get 2.5.
It's always good to have variety among the portfolio for the wineries as well. So that's a chance for them when they hold wine dinners and so forth. They do have something from the same vineyard that they're sharing with you from a different grape varietal, and it's another part of the meal.
Now this one also is $24, and again, it's Joseph Jewell, 2009. So another good vintage here. I mean, I'm really starting to get into the 9s now, and I'm liking them a lot. You got a question there, Sis?
I certainly do.
Okay, fire away.
So this question is coming from Brian, and he would like to know what the difference is between oak and neutral oak.
Oh, wonderful. Good question. When we talk about oak barrels, in your wine program, and so I'll talk about it from the angle of a red wine because it fits the profile. You've got a couple choices when you're going to age the wine in the barrel. You can put the juice into 100% brand new French or American oak, but that's going to change the profile of that wine rather dramatically. What most wine producers do for the majority of their wines, there's a cost issue,
right.
Big time, and you don't want to over oak that wine, and so what they'll do is they'll maybe take 30 or 40%, right, of the juice, and put it into brand new barrels, and then the rest of it put it into barrels that were used last year or the year before or maybe the year before that. That's what we call a barrel that becomes neutral, in that you're not imparting a lot of the aromas that you would find in a brand new barrel. You're getting a little bit of it, and so it really becomes neutral to the aging process of the wine. Did I explain that?
Yeah. The way I see it is you think about a barrel, you can use it for many years, but the reality is when it's brand new, you're going to get, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to do this, but if you see a new barrel, if you happen to be in wine country and put your nose to that hole at the top and smell it, you'll really smell this wonderful, fragrant forest kind of smell that I feel like I'm in Home Depot. When you get to year number 2, now we've used it once. We've extracted a lot of that, so it dials down if it was music, it dials it down a little quieter, and then the 3rd year you're just imparting just a little bit of that. But in fairness, neutral oak by itself as a vessel is still going to impart a different character than if you just put it into a tank, because there's still that interaction with the wood, whatever little bit there is. And don't forget, these barrels are toasted on the inside, and the level of toasting has an effect on the flavor profiles that come from it, which allows that sugar that was in the trees to get into the process of the winemaking. So neutral oak, in its pure form as a term, means it's in oak, but the oak is not meant to impart any of that woody kind of quality into the wine. And very much so for a white wine, you want to probably stay in that direction where it's lighter, because if you put a little bit of oak, new oak in this, it's going to stand out substantially because it's not a big enough wine to kind of take that in and incorporate that into the flavor profile.
I got a question on this wine. Has it got a weird nose to you? Now, we normally test our wines pretty frequently around here. We're really good. This is giving me a weird nose. Is it giving you a strange nose?
I think, and this happens with a lot of the handcrafted wines. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes you begin to pick up some of the characteristics of the winemaking where, for instance, if they're adding sulfites to stop the fermentation, so re-fermentation doesn't happen, you may end up finding that something is coming through in terms of the nose. There's just on this particular bottle, and you're familiar with this bottle, and it doesn't, this is not what
this is not jumping out of my skin at
all.
all.
So this particular nose of this particular bottle is showing a little bit, giving off a little bit of that. Now you just poured the top little bit. Mm-hmm. I bet if we were deeper into the bottle, you wouldn't find that to be the case.
Let's do this because this will be good. This is a good exercise. What I'm getting to is imperfections in the wine process primarily relate to corks, and we call that a corked wine. Some of those are real obvious. I've had wines where I literally didn't even pull the cork. I could smell it right through the cork.
It's like wet cardboard.
Like wet cardboard. But what I'm noticing something different in this wine that I normally don't notice in the wine. And I think what this will be fun. Let's do this. Let's pour a little bit more in our glass, and then let's put it aside, and then let's have Karina get one of these out of the back fridge, open it up, and we'll leave it over here. And at the end of the show, we'll compare and contrast on what that is, because I noticed it right away, and we were talking, and I thought, and I normally, if you saw a flaw, I probably wouldn't tell you right away. We're trying to make you love us, but we want to educate you as well. Because
we're in a world of handcrafted wine, so part of that is the characteristics of the environment and nuances in winemaking from vintage to vintage may affect that various characteristics of the wine, and I think that's part of the fun of trying these kinds of wines. Yeah.
So we're going to move and go back to this wine. So let's talk about 2010. This is Amorosa Bella. This is what we call a lightly oaked Chardonnay. So what do we mean by lightly oaked? And if you have questions that you're asking right now, Karina can't flag me or ask them because she's getting me another bottle to compare, because we're going to really compare that. When we talk about lightly oaked, one of the processes that winemakers can do is they'll take 25%, maybe 30%, and put that into a set of neutral barrels. Or new barrels, it could be, or maybe even a combination, and leave the rest of it in stainless steel. And by doing that, you impart some of the characteristics of the oak, a little bit of the buttery, creamy, but not what you would really get, like we're going to get in the Bonneau, because 100% of that was barrel fermented. Oh, very good. Thank you. All right, so you know, we look in the nose. You're not getting huge amounts of oak. It's not that evident in the wine. And again, this will be a little more versatile in your meal planning because of its crispness.
There's a fair amount of acid in this one.
Right. Notice that right away. Retail price on this is $26. If you're a Cellar Club member, because you totally get it, $22.10. All Russian River fruit. The fruit came from near Hopkiln, if you're familiar with the Hopkiln winery over in
Right across from Rapioli.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of acid. You can tell that. It makes your mouth water a little bit, especially on the sides.
Nice mouthfeel, nice finish. Again, very crisp. So I would lean toward this. Again, if you're outdoors and you're out by the pool and you want something real crisp, that's going to do it. That's going to work. Here, Karina, pour from this bottle here, in case my hunch is correct. Because we never know. Right. Exactly. So if you really want something a little crisper, this is going to really fit the bill.
Yeah, it's when you have this level of acid, a great balance, and the fruit is really speaking. Classic Chardonnay notes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Chardonnay.
But it's really speaking refreshment when you have that kind of balance of acid with the flavor profile. And so many of the way back, they used to do what they called monster shards. Lots of malolactic fermentation and so forth. They're really big wines, trying to make them like red wines. This particular profile, I think, is the kind that definitely is a summertime wine.
Oh yeah.
You know, many of the Chardonnays you say, well, you can do that year round. This you can do year round too, but that's because you're looking for refreshment. Yeah. You're looking for it to pair up with a lighter part of the meal. And one of those social wines where you can have groups in and kind of pick around the appetizers and so forth. Yeah, very much.
Yeah, it fits the bill. For summertime, that's what you want. And we have had summertime here. Man, was it freaking hot this weekend. Wow. Went to the lake with my son Andrew, and we took out his jet skis.
Nice.
And my butt is so sore, I just can't tell you how uncomfortable I am right now. That's for young people. But I tell you, I went so fast, and you can go pretty fast in those stupid jet skis, man. You can really that I stood up. I literally stood up like this, going over a wake. I was that high in the air.
I bet you looked really badass.
Oh, I did. I looked, and like no camera, no video, no nothing. You just got to trust me.
Wasted moment, huh?
Andrew saw it though. It was, but you know, you crash pretty hard. I mean, you land. You're not. You know, that's not much.
Water's not soft.
No, water is not soft. Do you have a question there, girl?
I do.
Okay, fire away.
So this question comes from Brian, and he would like to know that.
Where are you from, Brian? Just tell us when you get a chance. Go ahead, fire away. Go ahead.
His question is, does the vineyard producing wine in previous hop fields produce a hop taste?
So if it was a vineyard that was created where you had hops, I don't know. You tell me. I don't even know of an area. I don't even know of a scenario where they
hops created in vineyards.
Well, this area, Sonoma County, was very strong with growing hops way back. And so that's a really interesting question, and it really goes to a bigger question of when you plant things near the vines, does it pick up the characteristics of the things that you plant? And there's a lot of study going on right now about that. However, your question's a little different. If in the past the soil served up hops, and you grew hops there, and now the hops are no longer there, and now we're growing vines. What you end up with is the soil that becomes a set of nutrients in a climate that is conducive to growing hops and vines. And it's not likely that you're going to see any of the chemistry of what is the hops ending up in the wine. And there's a lot of supporting evidence these days that a lot of things that we think might happen, minerals, for instance, and so forth, might in fact not come from the minerals in the soil. So that's a hot topic, and it's a worthwhile question to ask. Good question.
What about something that's really strong, like eucalyptus trees or something like that?
You know, it's interesting because I'm convinced that I can find eucalyptus in vineyards where maybe they plant in between the eucalyptus and so forth. There's a lot of discussion about that. A lot of people say yes, that happens.
Well, yeah, if you
find
go to
eucalyptus
if you go to the Petaluma Gap, if you look at that geographic area, that's all Lakeville Highway and all the way through in that area.
Yeah.
That's all eucalyptus trees.
Right. Right.
So
the feeling is that the characteristic, much like when you have fires in the vineyards, that are taken through the skins and absorbed after the grapes grow, anything that ends up in the grapes because it was picked up through the air and so forth, potentially could affect the profile of the wine. So it has to be something concurrent. If you're talking about hops that are no longer grown, that would not likely be the case. I wouldn't know how that would happen. But something that's nearby could theoretically, at least theoretically, find its way in there. And I'm convinced that there are some vineyards near eucalyptus where I pick up eucalyptus and say it's got to have a relationship somehow.
Yeah. So great question. That's a great one. Did you have another one?
I do.
You're okay. Fire
so
away.
This question comes from Desdell.
Okay.
Well, the first thing is Brian is from Santa Rosa, so hello,
Brian.
Brian.
Hi, Brian.
So Desdell's question is, what varietal do you drink more in the summer than any other season?
Oh,
great question.
Beer.
That's a varietal, right?
I drink beer. What can I say?
We're just talking about hops.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you got me
That's
moving.
right on target.
It's right on target. I'd love to have a beer. Well, again, rosés. I'm a big fan, super big fan. I can really handle that. And my red wine only drinkers, give it a look. Don't be so narrow-minded. Go out and get yourself a really nice rosé. We've got wonderful rosés here that are magnificent. They really are nice, and that's a versatile wine. Sauvignon Blanc. You'll see me with some Sauvignon Blanc, without a doubt. I can handle both of those. And
For me, it's Chardonnay, but you know what? It's Chardonnay because it's Blanc de Blanc, because I love sparkling wine in the summertime.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful.
True.
Refreshing.
And you can dress it up, you know.
You can dress it up, and it can be a rosé, it can be a Blanc de Noir, and it can be from Pinot Noir or some of the other grapes. But it's definitely a unique experience to have sparkling wine. I know you have some here.
Oh, yeah.
And
Amrosabella makes one.
In summertime, I think that's a great choice.
Yeah. No, I agree.
For every day. For every day.
Don't think of that's a great point. Don't think of sparkling wine as just celebratory. Enjoy it as a palate cleanser, man. Start your meal with it. It's really, when you come and do the food and wine pairing, that's what I give the folks while they're waiting for the food, is a little sparkling wine. It just invigorates their palate and wakes things up.
It's a great welcome wine.
Yeah, and it won't give you a headache because it's good quality. What gives you a headache in sparkling wine is the junky stuff. Don't spend a little extra money. That's where you want to put it. Get a little better quality. Don't mess around. Now, when you guys come into the tasting room, one of the cool things you can do here, besides meet our staff and be in the greatest tasting room in all of America, but you can do a flight tasting, and we have a couple of flights that we've put together. One of them is a blind tasting, which is kind of cool because you're going to taste a Cab, a Pinot, a Zin, and a Syrah. But what we do is we don't tell you the order. You try to guess. If you guess correctly, the tasting's on us. I had 4 people at the bar yesterday that all 4 of them nailed it. I don't know how they did that, but that was pretty amazing. That's the first time we've seen that. But when you get done with the tasting, you get to enter into a contest to buy a bottle of wine for $1. But you have to, in order to win, you have to be tuned in or watching from home. You can be in the tasting room or home and watch our show. I draw the name. If you're tuned in, you win. Simple. $1 a bottle. And every week I don't have a winner, I add a bottle, and we're up to 3. I put in my email that we're at the 3. I think we're at 3. So we're at 3 bottles tonight. So we're gonna pull 4 names out of here. Unless I get a winner right away, you need to call the tasting room, 707-578-1826. I went through the bag, and I pulled every single name out of here, and I read every name. So I know how many of you, this is a shout-out to Nick Hansen. Your name's going to come up, dude. This guy's been in here, man. It's unbelievable. But there's no limit. You can come in and do the tasting as many times as you want. But he's a wine club member, so he gets it. Duh. He doesn't pay for the tasting, so why would he not do it?
Sure.
And, yeah, Brad, you were in here a couple of times.
Is this the same tasting that we did once, maybe a month and a half ago or something, where we did the blind tasting as well? With a they have an opportunity to look on the Ustream.
Oh yeah, they can see
a tasting that we did.
Yeah.
That was a blind tasting of those same wines.
Yeah, same wines. Yeah, that's a little harder one. What you want to do, you got a Pinot Noir, so you want to back into the answer, right? So find the Pinot. I think it's easier to find the Syrah. The people get kind of weird about the Syrah and the Cab. They're thinking the Cab should be darker in color, and that's not true. So anyway, it's a fun way to do the tasting, but then you get to enter the contest, and some of you have won big. Hello, Brad. I mean, gosh darn, Mr. Freaking Lucky. So, Dave, you're going to reach in there and dig right in there, man. Dig in there good. I mixed it all up. I took all the names out. I refolded each of the pieces of paper, so there's no. God, if that says Mr. Lucky. Oh, okay. I get really worried that it's the same person over and over, Brad. But I gotta say, Nick Hansen. Jeez, dude, you've been in the tasting room. Love that. There were several of you that had been in here before. And what's interesting, there's several of the names that I saw in here that I've pulled before when we had the thing up at like 15 or 18 bottles and they missed it. Gotta love that. So anyway, you got my email though. So this is Kyle Potter. Kyle Potter, 415 San Francisco, that Bay Area. Kyle Potter, you have won 3 bottles of wine for $3. But you got to call the tasting room. Let's pull another one.
Okay.
And then I'll pull 2 more at the end here. So if I get more than one winner, then we'll figure it out. Okay, this is Gene Sassis, S-A-I-S, Sassis. A 626 area code. That's like Arizona or something, 626. Gene Sassis. Gene Sassis, you have won also 3 bottles of wine for $3, but you got to be tuned in to win like you guys are, and we appreciate the fact that you are tuned in. So let's talk about Amorosa Bella, 2010. Lots of time on this wine. You could certainly lay some of this down. Again, pick up a case. Don't buy dumb amounts of wine. You're going to kick yourself. Right. Those of you that live outside of California, ship a case at a time. Be smart about this because you're going to regret it. You're going to get it home. You're going to have a party, blow through it, and go, oh, great. And you're not going to go to the grocery store and pick this up. This doesn't exist. Right. These are rare, small production wines. And I know they made like 100 cases or something. I mean, just some dumb teeny number. That's not a lot
That's
of wine.
Amazing.
It's,
yeah.
What is it, 4 barrels?
Yeah. I mean,
it's only 4 barrels, people. Are you kidding me? So 2010... You want crisp? That's giving it to you all day long. Now, a couple things to note. Those of you coming to Wine Country, Summerfest. Summerfest is an event that is held right here in beautiful Railroad Square. We close the street. We have live music out in the street. We have some arts and craft vendors. We have the restaurants in the local area here selling their food. We've got wineries pouring wine. We've got a beer spot where they can get some beer. So everybody's covered. Live music in the street, and that starts the first Friday in June, and then it goes July, August, and September. So 4 opportunities to come to Wine Country. If you're going to make plans to come to Wine Country, you do want to go to this event. It starts at 5 o'clock on the first Friday in June, goes till about 8. And don't worry, got plenty of entertainment for you, because when you're done, you come over here. I have live music all night until your credit cards get declined, and then we close the we go, uh-oh, we've got to close because your card didn't go through. So when we get to that level, then we're done. And so it's a great time. That's a great Wine Country event, the ultimate, very, very, very fun. Also, coming up in June, Lobster Lunch is back. This is our 4th annual Lobster Lunch. Let me tell you how cool this is. Just leave that slide up. And that's got audio on it, right? You can hear me through that slide? Okay. Let me tell you how cool this is. First of all, you're at James Family Cellars in their vineyard, okay? It's up on a hill. It overlooks the valley. It's surrounded by the vineyards. We start out with oysters on the half shell, and they come from Hog Island, the really nice stuff over here. And then artisan cheeses. Then you go on a vineyard tour with Jeff and Judy. And, of course, you're drinking their beautiful Chardonnays, their Rosé, their Pinot Noir, their Syrah, not the Zin, because it's sold out. I warned you guys, you don't listen to me. When these things are gone, man, they're gone, okay? That was a fabulous bottle of wine, and it's gone forever. You're never going to see it again. They're not going to be able to produce that. And that's just the shame of it, but that's what happens with the small production. And then while we're doing all that, they're cooking in pots with lobster, shrimp, artichokes, potatoes, onion, and corn on the cob, and they dump it out on the table, as you can see from the picture. It is the most, and there's no plates, no forks, nothing. Just cracker things to
Caveman style?
Huh?
Caveman style?
Oh, yeah. And, and you can actually, you eat that stuff, right?
I do.
Because you're kind of like a vegetarian that eats meat.
Sorta.
Okay, so she's kind of...
A pollo pescatarian.
What the...
I eat chicken
Really?
and fish.
Chicken and fish. All right, well, you would qualify for that, because, it's got it all, man. It is the coolest event. Great wines, wonderful people. It's $95 if you're a wine club member. If you're not a wine club member, it's $115. We might even do something fun and sell a table of 6. So I'll work on that, and you might get a special deal if you go with a table of 6. In fact, I'll call it out right now. If you're not a wine club member and you're paying the $1.15, if you do a table of 6, I'll give you $15 a ticket off. How about that? $15 a ticket discount if you buy 6. So get 3 couples together and you've done it. It's the coolest event ever. Lobster Lunch coming June. What did I say? What's the date on that? June 29th. We also have one at the Dunois Vineyard coming up in August, and we'll talk more about that in the coming months. That one's on August 17th. And same routine, beautiful vineyard, wonderful people will love that. And so if you're making plans to come to Wine Country, make a plan around that. One of the things that we offer our customers is the concierge service. In other words, when you guys are making plans for Wine Country, call us. Don't start looking online and all that. Forget all that.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
I can hook them up with a hotel right away. Mm-hmm. I can get them over in the Marriott like that, which is right across the street from here. You're surrounded by 18 or 20 restaurants, a couple wine shops, one being us, and then you're right at the beginning of Wine Country. And if you don't think I know all the cool places to go, you're crazy. I know all the cool places. So use us as a resource. Our staff does as well. They're very knowledgeable about this stuff and can help you out and save you tons of time. Because a lot of you guys get in these, you get in these cities where you're too far away from wine country. You think you're in wine country and you're really not. Did you have a question there, young lady? No. Yes?
I do.
Okay,
Brian has another question.
Okay.
He would like to know if you could explain the differences between Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, Syrah, and Petit Syrah.
Jeez.
He's on a roll. Come on in. You're close enough. We can sit down and talk about
I think you need to come in the tasting room. Well, speak to the Pinot Gris, because that's more in the
the Italian word for Pinot Gris is Pinot Grigio, so we know what that is. And there are, from Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris, Gris means gray, and there's another grape called Pinot Blanc, which means white. So you got Noir being black, so you got black, gray, and white. It's interesting to look at what the colors of the grapes are, because if you notice in Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio, it's not truly a fully red kind of grape skin, to the point where it is, when you make it into a rosé, it almost becomes a golden with just a slight red hue to it, which is interesting to know. So you can get a rosé Pinot Grigio or Pinot Gris. Classy grape, though. I think it's a great grape. They're all related. And it's Pinot Noir and Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris. That particular grape varietal is probably the most changing. There's so many variations among those. So that's the discussion of Pinot Noir being red, Pinot Gris being a white wine, but guess what? It's kind of gray, I guess, between the two. And then Pinot Blanc, which is a white wine. The other question was for Syrah and Petit Syrah, right?
Syrah and Petit Syrah?
They used to think that Syrah and Petit Syrah were simply smaller little grapes of
the Syrah grape.
The Syrah.
That's interesting.
In fact, it is not. There's a lot of similar characteristics. There's peppery quality, but Petit Syrah is more tannic. The grapes are smaller, thus Petit Syrah. It's kind of a different grape. The whole Derif, they have other names for it. So, but in the end, if you want a wine that lasts a long time, you look for tannin, and you can turn to Petit Syrah to find a lot of tannin in your wine. Again, both offer pepper, but it tends to be a little more tannic. It needs a little more breathing.
Sure does.
It also it lasts a lot longer, typically. But what's really cool right now is with winemaking techniques right now, especially out here, they're making very friendly Petit Syrah. And it's a really enjoyable grape. So Syrah and Petit Syrah are also wonderful, heavier style reds, and
they're bigger.
That's kind of a basic comparison.
And if you want a soft finish in a big wine like that, look for Alexander Valley. That's going to give you a soft finish. It's just part of the terroir and what you get in the soil and weather over in that area. It just creates that wonderful finish, and so you want that at the end of that big wine like that. That's a big wine. Now you're standing next to that steak going, grill it up, baby. I'm ready to go. All right, so now I poured the other Chardonnay. This is Bonneau. This is their Sonoma Coast Chardonnay, 2010. Retail price on that is $34. Cellar Club $28.90. Now you might look at that and say, well, wait a minute. The Amorosa Bella is $26. This is $34. Why the difference? The biggest difference in price point here is in the wood program, because this is 100% barrel fermented, and so you have a much different cost in producing this wine than you do in the Amorosa Bella, thus the difference in price point. You got to respect the fact that probably 30 or 40% of this was brand new French oak, and the rest of it were 1 and 2 year old barrels. That's very expensive. Those of you that don't know, a French oak barrel runs about $1,000, $1,200 bucks. I mean, they're expensive, and to lay that out every year, that's a lot of dough. That is a lot of dough in your wine program. So,
in your array in the tasting room here, is it mostly French oak that you see being used?
You see primarily French. You will see Some Hungarian, because it has some of the same characteristics that you see in the French, but a little lower price point. You have some American. You see some movement in American. I personally am not a big fan. If you had two wines, laid them side by side, one I could probably pick out the American oak over the French, and I like the complexity of the French and the elegance of the French. I find that the American oak is a little more abrasive to me. That's just me. A little better price point, though. You know, you're probably you're probably clicking $600 or $700. So there's some economics that come into the winemaking process, I think.
Right.
And some winemakers we've seen where they've got a little French, a little Hungarian. They add a little American oak in there, and then as they blend, they figure out the right blend. Now, this right away, compared to the Amorosa Bella, completely different nose. Immediately, the oak barrel jumps right out at you, and the secondary fermentation. So explain what secondary fermentation, what we're talking about, malolactic.
Malolactic fermentation is when you go from that biting green apple quality to that creamy red delicious quality. It's like doing that to the wine. So it's taking the malic acid, turning it into lactic acid, lactic like milk. So it goes from one to the other, and the process is more of an enzyme than it is true fermentation, but they call it fermentation anyway. So, it's one of those things that changes the character because it goes further yet away from the acid of a Sauvignon Blanc, further away from what we experienced, the high level of acid and refreshment in the first Chardonnay. It gets us into a world where it has enough of a body to it that it could be a very refreshing, as it's chilled and so forth, refreshing alternative to a red wine, sometimes where you would use a red wine in many cases. So it gives an elegance to the wine. It's more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that you step up to because you want that extra elegance that comes through.
When I think, again, we talk about food and food pairing, when you're having rich foods like the lobster lunch, you're going to lean a little more toward something with a little more structure to it, which is what this is imparting here. This is pouring really, really, really nice. Now, I have a disagreement with winemakers. First of all, the interesting thing with winemakers, many of them, their favorite wine is Chardonnay. I mean, really. I mean, there's so many of them that they really, really, really love Chardonnay. But the interesting part is they tend to like to drink it more in this temperature. This is a little warmer than I would normally serve this. And they really want that fruit to jump out of that glass, and that's the only way it's going to happen. So what I'm talking about is if you chill down that Chardonnay too much, you're going to mask the fruit. Now, there's a balance between that and going room temperature. Then you're going to think the thing's corked. I mean, it's going to really change. Somewhere in a happy medium. But watch your Chardonnays, because they will change. But from my personal feelings, I like them a little chilled, a little bit more. But winemakers, this is the way they want it.
This is the way they do it.
They really, truly...
And when we do wine tastings, a lot of times we'll do this because the temperature is not masking some of the nuances of the wine. And for that matter, when you're tasting wines you don't know what they are, it'll actually show some of the flaws of a less expensive wine, a cheaper wine. Yeah. And the flaws will step forward, so you can see that too. So a lot of times when a buyer is tasting wines, they will, for those less expensive wines, serve a really chilled bottle of that, hoping you don't notice that the flaws are there. Having been a wine buyer, you haven't been a wine buyer, we know that trick. So we find ourselves, when we kick back and enjoy a meal, chilling it down the way you're talking about. Yeah. When we're trying to evaluate wines, a lot of times we'll let it go down to to warm up a bit in this range.
But I'll tell you what, no flaw here. Beautiful wine, nice mouthfeel. Beautiful finish. You can tell John took really good care of this Chardonnay. Picked amazing fruit, and but it's not overly buttery and over oaked. Where, if you went 100% new oak, man, you'd know it in a minute. Not at all. I mean, it's just very well balanced. Fantastic wine, and hats off. He did a very nice job on this Chardonnay here. Now, earlier in the show, one of the second wine that we tasted was a Joseph Jules Sauvignon Blanc, and I felt that there was something not right on that particular wine. And so one comment you made was that was the top of the bottle,
Potentially, yeah.
And so we
Little
poured
bit.
a little extra. We've let it sit, and we're going to revisit it. And then I've got a fresh new bottle here. Both of those were fresh bottles, but
I think it's still there. Do you?
what was bothering me is still here.
You got that little bit of that.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do
rotten
is I'm gonna dump this out. Normally I would just pound it down, but I'm going to dump it out. And what I'm going to do is dump yours out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat the glass a little bit. This is something that you do. Let's say that you're doing a wine tasting and you're going from one wine to another. And I don't care if you're going from white to red, doesn't really matter. Do not put water in the glass. Anybody that tells you that is a knucklehead. Don't do it. Use the wine, because the wine, you put water in there, you're just going to kill that freaking wine. You're not going to be able to get all that water out. Just rinse it out with the next wine, just like I did here. And now I've coated it, and I've taken all that old stuff out, and you're good to go. And you can.
All rinsed again.
Right?
Yep.
So there's your rinse. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare the second bottle that we opened, because we felt that there was something in that wine that could have affected the finish. And I noticed it right away. And you should go with your first hunch when you're tasting wines. Go with your first hunch, because you're probably right. Oh, and look at this one, has a bug in it. The bug died too. That's telling you a lot right
There you
there.
go.
See? It killed him. That's what it did. It killed the bug. Wow, there is a bug, and I almost ate him. I want to say that the first wine, the first Sauvignon Blanc, I would call it flabby, or it's kind of like it's not your typical corked. Corked wine, you know right away it's corked. It's just obvious. In fact, you can't even drink it. It's not. Okay, you can drink this, but it's not. It doesn't have the zest that this second one has. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Do you think
yeah.
that?
I think what you've got going on in this, the first glass. Well, there's two things going on right now. There's a temperature difference between these two.
Yes, it sure is.
And so you're going to pick up a little more zestiness in the more chilled one, because I know you said you like that.
I like the chill.
But let's say they were at the same temperature, still, and I've talked about this before, I know on the show, where you can pick up different nuances based on where your nose is in relation to the top of the glass. If I back off just slightly, about 3/4 of an inch or a half inch, I begin to pick up that little bit of that. It starts feeling like rotten egg kind of thing, which sounds really terrible. That's not meant to be. It's just trying to put us in the category of smell. It begins to do that. You say that's not supposed to happen there.
Right.
A lot of times, especially in small production, small lot winemaking, the way they use sulfur and so forth in the vineyards and so forth. Sometimes along the way, in the winemaking process, there might be a little bit of that is higher than you would necessarily want. It doesn't hurt the wine at all, It adds some character to the wine, actually.
Yeah.
These two are different. The second one being more enjoyable than the first. But if you put your nose into the first glass, I kind of don't get it until I begin to back it up. And that's why I know it's a real subtle quality that I suspect that many people would not even think twice about it.
No.
He knows the wine.
Nine times
nuance of the wine.
9 times out of 10, you'd never even have it. Just you drink it, great, wonderful.
I liken it to somebody's voice. Recognize their voice because you've been around them a lot. Same kind of thing. He knows the voice of this wine. Does it make it wrong? That's slightly different, not necessarily. So
No,
I wouldn't worry about this. Is not anything to turn
Yeah,
in.
and Joseph Jewell makes great wines. Don't get that wrong. I'm being overly critical only because, one, I really want to tell you guys the kind of experience you're going to get when you come in the tasting room. The staff knows what I know on these wines, and we want you to have the absolute best experience, and it really means we have to catch those little subtle issues that could relate to the cork or could be a lot of different things. We want you to have the absolute best experience with that wine because we know we love this wine.
Right.
But it's got to show right.
Right.
And in doing this show here, for as long as we've done it, which is the longest running webcast about wine in the world, by the way, in case anybody was challenging me by showing me the other videos of the other shows that have been consecutively shown for 4 years, which don't exist. It's surprisingly, we pretty much, there's a very few scenarios where we actually have a bad bottle of wine. I don't think I've even had a show where I've had a even close.
Right.
But this came up, and I to your point, I could smell it out here more than I could in here.
That's kind of an indicator that it isn't affecting the taste at all.
No. The wine was nice.
And for all practical purposes, because you're familiar with that voice.
Yeah.
You said you got a cold today. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's great.
Yeah.
It's a great wine. The wines are consistently crafted. And I love these wines, and they're great winemakers. Beautiful wines, really.
Yeah. But we want to let you guys know that we know that they're in winemaking. You're going to have 4 to 7% that are corked, man.
Well, that's
and
one
some
thing.
of those.
But there's bottle variation too.
Yeah.
I can buy a case, and I will have a variation. The corner bottles will have more of a variation than the ones in the center.
Right.
Because they have two sides exposed to the outside. So if you're in a warm warehouse, whatever, there will be nuances in its provenance as it goes through different experiences. So it's a bottle variation that still is within the totally acceptable and rather enjoyable. That's part of what wine is all about. It's alive.
That's right.
It's alive.
And it changes as it sits. It changes in the bottle. Changes as it sits in the glass. There's no question about it. But we wanted to. I wanted to do the experiment because I saw a little. And it was just a little bit, and like I say, 9 times out of 10, 99.9 out of 100, you'd never pick that in a million years. But you have to remember, I open up hundreds and hundreds of bottles of wine, and I see these all the time.
Sure.
So I'm very in tune. But it was nice to put them side by side.
It was, yeah.
Because it does address what,
And
again,
bottle variation is a great topic to talk about. It's all good.
Yeah, and I'm liking that. I'm not liking that. So, all right, let's pull 2 more names out of here because obviously those 2 didn't tune in. Too bad you lost. Well, you didn't win. Well, you won, but you didn't. Yeah, pull 2. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Oh, you got 2.
All right. So, here we go. All right, the lucky person is Jenny Candelaria. Jenny Candelaria 209. 209. That's like Washington, D.C. or somewhere like that. Anyway, Jenny Candelaria. Wait till you get my email. It says you almost won. But 3 bottles of wine, $3. You got a little bit of time, and you can call in if you've got a question. Do you have a question real quick? Okay. They're going. Come on, you're going over. I know. Andrea Burgeon. Andrea Burgeon. Andrea Burgeon, are you in the house? Andrea Burgeon, wait till you, 707 area code, no excuse, none whatsoever. Is that you? You don't look like an Andrea. But you need more wine. Well, we can do that. We can take care of this gentleman, make sure he gets his wine. So, all right, coming up this weekend. This weekend we have Thursday, 5:30 to 8:30. We've got. Go ahead and throw that slide up for me. Thank you. Ricky Allen Ray on Thursday, 5:30 till 8:30, and then we have John Pita on Friday, 7:30 to 10:30, and then Falcon Christopher. Take a look at this kid in this picture. You got that up on the slide there? He's 9 years old and plays bass with his father. If you guys have not seen this, I'm just telling you, this is like 10 years from now, you're going to go, oh my God, that's that kid that used to play at Sellers.
Sure.
Before they sold for $5 million, which we'll take that tomorrow. If anybody has $5 million, you can have the business tomorrow for $5 million. But anyway, until you do that, but you're going to look back 10 years from now, and you're going to go, oh my gosh, that was that little kid. He is just incredible. He also plays keyboards. He played keyboards and sang last time he was here.
Nice.
So, I mean, it's a great show, wonderful music. So that's this weekend right here, Wine Country. Oh, and it's, isn't it What You Give Her weekend? Isn't it?
I have no idea.
Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, right. That's that.
So free wine. Every day the wine, no, there's no free wine. Every day we'll have something fun. And Monday is Memorial Day, so come on by. In fact, what we'll do is come by Monday, and your first glass of wine is on the house. So I'll do that. I'll shout that out. Let's see if you guys take me up on that. On Monday, Memorial Day, it's
nice.
Celebrating our great warriors that help us every single day and keep us from checkpoints. So I want to thank Dave very much for coming in. And we're going to have you back.
Good.
And we're going to talk about this company that you've done some work with.
That's correct.
About the grapes and what's the leftover stuff.
Right. They're taking everything that grows in a vineyard. Of course, they use the juice for wine. Everything else, they found some amazing things they can do with that.
So we're going to show that to you. We'll talk more about it next week, and then maybe in 2 weeks or so, we'll actually have samples of some of that, and we'll talk about it. It's pretty cool. So we'll discover it all here. I want to thank all my bloggers for tuning in, Sean and Dan and Dazelle and who else was on there? Grace Hoffman, who's some point, and Brad, of course. Somewhere in the world, she's going to move here pretty soon.
And live audience.
And our live audience, we thank you guys. And we thank you. This is where you discover wine one sip at a time here at Cellars of Sonoma. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Cheers.
And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.